What would you do if your own daughter tried to steal everything you had left, right in front of strangers, in broad daylight, smiling as if it was love? That was the nightmare I lived through. One ordinary Tuesday afternoon, inside a quiet suburban bank where no one noticed that my life was being torn apart. My name is Evelyn Carter. I am 69 years old, a widow, and for decades I was known as the woman who always said yes, the mother who sacrificed everything for her only child. But in that moment, sitting at a polished wooden desk under fluorescent lights, I realized my greatest mistake. I had raised a daughter who saw my love not as a gift, but as a bank account. Rachel, my 35-year-old daughter, sat beside me with a smile so perfect it could have been rehearsed. Her hand pressed mine down onto a pen, whispering in that sweet voice I once adored, "Just sign, Mom. It's only a routine transfer." On the other side, her husband David gripped my arm so hard it felt like my bones would crack. His breath reeked of cigarettes and cold coffee, but his expression never broke. He kept smiling for the security cameras, pretending we were just another happy family finalizing some paperwork. I could hear the rhythmic hum of the cash counting machines, the clicking keyboards, the murmured conversations of strangers nearby. Everyone carried on as if nothing was wrong. No one saw that I was being robbed not at gunpoint, but through poisoned affection and psychological manipulation. This wasn't a burglary. This was family betrayal wrapped in fake smiles and the word love. Rachel leaned closer, her perfume almost choking me. "Mom, trust me. This is for your own good. You can't handle this much money at your age." Her words were honey-coated knives. She wasn't asking me to trust her. She was demanding my surrender. What they wanted wasn't a small transfer. It was everything. My last $50,000. The only money I had left to survive after Thomas, my husband, of 46 years, passed away. For a second, I thought about giving in, about signing just to stop the pressure, to avoid a scene. But something inside me screamed. This was not love. This was coercion. This was elder abuse. And so while their eyes scanned the documents like vultures circling prey, I reached for a blank slip of paper on the table. My hand shook, but I managed to write 3 words that could save me help. "I'm being coerced." I folded the note quickly and slid it toward Mr. Harris, the bank manager, as he approached with his professional smile. Our eyes met. For a fleeting second, I saw his polite expression change into something else: alarm, understanding, resolve. He took the paper, nodded almost imperceptibly, and pressed something under his desk. In that instant, I felt the first spark of hope I had felt in years. They say betrayal always comes from those closest to you, but nothing could prepare me for the moment I realized my own daughter had been grooming me for years, not for love, not for companionship, but for my money. Sitting there in that bank, I suddenly saw my life play back like a cruel slideshow. Every dollar I had given, every sacrifice I had made, every tear I had shed had all led to this moment where Rachel, my only child, was smiling as she stripped me bare. I remembered the first time she asked me for something big. She was just 15, begging for summer camp. The tuition was $1,500, a fortune for our family back then. Thomas and I didn't have that kind of money, but I sold my grandmother's jewelry just to see Rachel smile. I told myself it was worth it, that a mother's duty was to give. Then came college. $40,000 a year for a private university she insisted on because a state school would embarrass her. Thomas and I mortgaged our house, worked extra shifts, and I came home with aching feet every night after scrubbing tables in a hospital cafeteria. Rachel graduated with honors, but instead of gratitude, She learned a deadly lesson: Mom will always pay. When she married David, I saw the warning signs, though I didn't want to admit it. His first question, when he shook my hand, wasn't, "How are you, ma'am?" but "Is the house paid off?" That should have been enough for me to draw a line. But I ignored the chill in my gut. Their wedding cost $50,000. Rachel begged Mom I'm only getting married once I want it perfect. And I caved. We took out another loan. Even Thomas's medication for his diabetes had to wait because Rachel's fairy tale mattered more. Then came the down payment for their house. $200,000 was the price tag, and they needed $40,000 up front. Did they save? No. Did they even try? No. Rachel turned to me, eyes glistening with crocodile tears, and whispered, "Mom, this will secure Emily's future. Please, I promise we'll pay you back." That was the biggest lie she ever told me. I withdrew $40,000 from the retirement fund I had been building for 20 years. I paid the 10% penalty, signed the withdrawal papers with trembling hands, and told myself it was worth it. That I was helping my daughter have the life I never had. When I handed Rachel that check, she hugged me and said, "You're the best mom in the world." But deep down, without knowing it, I had just handed her the key to my own prison. The calls never stopped. Refrigerator repairs, car troubles, kitchen renovations, ballet lessons for Emily. Always an emergency, always urgent, always ending with the same phrase, "Mom will pay you back." But they never did. Each request chipped away at my savings, and each time I said yes, I thought I was being a good mother. I didn't realize I was training Rachel to see me not as a mother, but as an ATM. The cruelest part was how she used Emily against me. My sweet granddaughter, with her big green eyes and innocent smile, was turned into a weapon. "Mom, don't you want Emily to have the best education? Don't you want her to shine in ballet?" How could I say no when that little girl would bring me drawings where I was always a giant with huge arms? She would hug me and say, "I made you big because your love is big, Grandma." Rachel knew exactly how to use that against me. She knew I couldn't resist. And then Thomas died. 46 years of marriage gone in one hospital bed, and suddenly I was a widow with only $50,000 left from his life insurance. I swore I'd guard that money with my life, that I'd finally learned to say no. But 2 months later, Rachel called crying, saying David had lost his job. They needed $20,000 to save the house from foreclosure. "It's for Emily," she sobbed. And of course, I gave it. I gave it, even though it was nearly half of what I had left. Now here I was, with $30,000 to my name, and Rachel was sitting across from me, urging me to sign it all away. The daughter I had nursed, the girl I once rocked to sleep, the child I sold jewelry and dreams for, was the same woman orchestrating my financial destruction. The truth seared through me like fire. Rachel didn't love me for who I was. She loved me for what I could give. That was the betrayal. Not David's manipulative grip on my arm, not the lies about investments, not the fake smiles for the cameras. It was Rachel's silence, her willingness to let her husband hurt me, to let him bruise my arm, to let him treat me like prey. She didn't stop him because deep down, she wanted it too. She wanted my money more than she wanted my love. And for the first time, I let myself say the words, even if only in my mind, my daughter betrayed me. The child I gave everything to is the one who came to take everything away. If there is one thing I learned that day, it's that manipulation doesn't always come with shouting or violence. Sometimes it comes with a smile. Rachel knew how to wear that mask better than anyone. She had perfected it over years, a performance so polished that strangers in the bank probably thought we were just a loving family, taking care of routine business. Rachel's voice was soft, honeyed, the same tone she used when she was a child, begging me for candy in the grocery store aisle. "Mom, trust me, this is just a simple transfer. It'll make things easier for everyone." To an outsider, she sounded like a daughter, concerned about her aging mother's financial stress. But I knew the truth. Behind that smile was calculation, and behind that gentle tone was control. David played his part, too, leaning close enough to look protective. But his grip on my arm betrayed the reality. He held me like a vice, his knuckles digging into my skin under the table. Yet his face never showed it. He kept grinning, as if this was a family picnic. "We'll take care of you, Evelyn," he whispered. But the coldness in his eyes told another story. This wasn't care. This was conquest. The cruelest act of all was how they invoked Emily. My granddaughter, only 8 years old, had become their most effective weapon. "Think of Emily Rachel," said, her lips still curled in that warm smile. "She deserves ballet lessons, summer camps, the kind of life you always wanted me to have." And when she said Emily's name, my heart clenched. That little girl was the one bright spot in all this darkness, the one person I still believed loved me without condition. But even Emily was pulled into their theater of false affection. I remembered the drawing she had given me, just the week before me, as a giant, with arms so wide they could hug the whole world. She told me, "I made you big, Grandma, because your love is big." Now Rachel twisted those words into chains. "Mom, Emily tells all her friends that you always take care of her. Don't let her down." It wasn't Emily speaking. It was Rachel using her own daughter like a puppet. The room around us went on as if nothing was happening. People chatted the teller, stamped papers, the cash machine clicked. No one realized I was being suffocated under a blanket of smiles and sweet words. This was robbery disguised as love. Not a gun to my head, but a daughter's hand on mine, guiding me toward my own financial execution. David leaned closer, his breath hot against my ear. "Don't make this harder than it has to be. Just sign." He smiled wider, showing his teeth as though telling a joke only I could hear. To the cameras, he looked like a supportive son-in-law. To me, he was a predator who had learned the perfect camouflage politeness. I tried to pull my hand back, but Rachel quickly covered it with both of hers, squeezing gently like a comforting hug. "Mom, I know this is scary," she said, tilting her head in that rehearsed way that made her look compassionate. "But it's for your own good. You don't need the stress of managing money at your age." Her words dripped with staged empathy, but each syllable stabbed me deeper. It wasn't love. It was theater, a family performance for an unwilling audience of one. The hardest part was how convincing it all looked. Even I wanted to believe it for a second. My daughter smiling my son-in-law, looking reassuring, my granddaughter's name floating like an innocent hymn between us. Anyone watching would have thought I was lucky to have such a caring family. But I knew the truth. I was the mark in their con, the target of their well-rehearsed play. The betrayal stung deeper because of how ordinary it seemed. No shouting, no scene, just smiles, just the soft word, Mom. Just Emily's name repeated like a sacred chant. That was the genius of their act. It erased the brutality, made me question my own instincts. Was I really being abused, or was I just imagining it? That doubt was their sharpest weapon. But deep down, my body knew the truth. The bruises forming on my arm under David's grip. The way Rachel's eyes hardened for a split second when I hesitated. The way Emily's innocence was bent into manipulation. It was all there, hidden behind the curtain of sweetness. And I realized something that chilled me to the bone. Rachel had learned this art of false affection from me. All those years of me smiling through pain, saying yes when I wanted to say no, teaching her that love meant sacrifice. She had learned the performance from my own stage. And now she was using it against me. So I sat there, my pen hovering their smiles, closing in around me like walls. They thought their act was flawless. They thought they had me cornered. But for the first time in my life, I began to see through the masks. A smile can be the cruelest weapon of all. As I sat in that bank, Rachel's hand tightening around mine, I couldn't help but drift back into the past. It was like my whole life flashed before me, not in images of joy, but in an endless stream of sacrifices, each one another stone laid on the path that had brought me here. For 69 years, I had been the woman who always said yes, and that yes had cost me everything. I remembered the little things first. The bicycle when Rachel was 5. It was pink with streamers on the handlebars, and it cost $200 money. We didn't really have at the time. Thomas and I worked double shifts just to scrape it together. I told myself it was worth it when I saw her smile. That was my first big yes, the first time I traded my own security for her happiness. Then came summer camp. She was 15 and all her friends were going. The tuition was $1,500. I didn't want her to feel different or left out, so I sold my grandmother's jewelry family heirlooms that had been passed down for generations. I told myself they were just objects, that Rachel's joy was more important than gold or memory. I said yes. College was the turning point. Rachel insisted on a private university, $40,000 a year. Mom, I can't go to a state school. What will people think? I tried to reason with her, but her tears broke me. Thomas and I took out a loan against the house. I scrubbed hospital floors until my hands cracked and bled. I worked so many late nights that sometimes I barely saw Thomas, but I told myself it was worth it. Watching her walk across that stage with honors diploma in hand, I cried tears of pride. But even in that moment, I didn't realize I had taught her a dangerous lesson, that love was measured in dollars, and that my yes was permanent. The wedding came next, $50,000 for a dream ceremony. I wanted to say no. Thomas had just been diagnosed with diabetes, and we needed money for his medication. But Rachel begged Mom, I'm only getting married once. Don't ruin this for me. I looked at her radiant face, so full of hope, and I folded again. I said, yes. We borrowed, we sacrificed, and she had her fairy tale day. She looked beautiful in her lace gown while I stood in the back, exhausted and worried about how we'd pay the bills. Then the down payment, $40,000 for a house they couldn't afford. It's an investment, Mom, a step toward Emily's future. She promised me she'd pay it back every cent. I believed her because I wanted to. Because mothers believe their children, even when the truth is staring them in the face. I withdrew the money, paid the penalties, and handed her the check like a proud benefactor. When she hugged me and called me the best mom in the world, I believed it was gratitude. Now I know it was entitlement. After that, the requests blurred together. A broken refrigerator, a car that needed repairs, a new kitchen, ballet lessons, piano classes, clothes for recitals, summer camps. The emergencies never stopped. And each time I told myself the same lie, that this would be the last, that this time she would keep her promise. But she never did. Every time I said yes, I was digging myself deeper into a hole. And Rachel learned that her mother's love had no boundaries. The cruelest irony was that Thomas saw it. He warned me gently, saying, Evelyn, you've got to save something for yourself. But I couldn't hear him. My whole identity was wrapped around being the provider, the rescuer, the savior. I didn't know how to be anything else. When he died 3 years ago, I felt half of my soul leave with him. I promised myself then that I would stop, that I would guard the $50,000 left from his insurance, like my life depended on it. But when Rachel called crying about David losing his job, I gave her $20,000 anyway. I gave it, even though it was almost half of what I had left. Because I couldn't bear the thought of Emily losing her home. Because I couldn't bear to be the mother who said no. Now, sitting in that bank with Rachel, urging me to sign away the last $30,000 I had, the truth hit me harder than any slap. I wasn't just a generous mother. I was an accomplice in my own destruction. I had built this trap one yes at a time. The words echoed in my mind, cruel and undeniable. For 69 years, I had been the woman who always said yes. And that yes had brought me here, broke desperate and betrayed by the very child I thought I was saving. When Mr. Harris approached our table, my heart thudded so hard, I thought it might betray me. His smile was professional calm, the kind of expression you expect from a man who has spent his life handling other people's money. But when his eyes flicked down to the folded note I had slid across the table, I saw his mask slip for just a fraction of a second. He read the words, "Help. I'm being coerced." And he understood. Rachel didn't notice. She was busy straightening the paperwork, her manicured nails tapping the desk in a rhythm of impatience. David's grip on my arm loosened slightly, but only to reposition himself, so his hand looked more like a gentle touch than a shackle. To anyone watching, we looked like a normal family. But Harris knew better. His gaze lingered on me, steady and reassuring, before he slipped the note into his pocket. Without missing a beat, he said, "Excuse me, folks. I just need to verify some details. Mrs. Carter, would you mind accompanying me to my office for a quick review? It's standard procedure." Rachel immediately stiffened. "That's not necessary," she said, her smile widening, but her eyes flashing with warning. "My mother has already decided. Haven't you, Mom?" She squeezed my hand, her nails biting into my skin. But Harris didn't waver. He extended his hand toward me. "It's policy, ma'am. No exceptions." The security guards appeared as if on cue, pretending to straighten chairs nearby, but ready to intervene. For the first time all afternoon, David's hand released my arm. My body trembled as I stood, not from weakness, but from the sudden terrifying taste of freedom. Rachel hissed in my ear, "Don't make this difficult." But I followed Harris. His office was small, tucked behind frosted glass, lined with family photos and a cactus on the window ledge. As he shut the door, I felt like I had crossed into another world, a place where I might finally be safe. He gestured for me to sit. "Mrs. Carter," he said, lowering his voice, "tell me what's going on." And just like that, the dam broke. I poured it all out, the loans, the tuition, the wedding, the down payment, the endless emergencies. I told him about David's grip, about Rachel's weaponization of Emily's innocence. I told him how this $30,000 was all I had, left the last fragile shield between me and poverty. My voice shook, but I didn't stop. Harris listened silently, nodding, jotting notes in a leather-bound book. His calmness steadied me as though my pain was finally being recorded, finally being believed. When I finished, I sat back breathless, my hands still trembling. Harris sighed deeply, choosing his words with care. "Ma'am, what you're describing isn't just family pressure, it's financial coercion. In some cases, it qualifies as elder abuse. What they're doing is illegal. Illegal." The word echoed in my head like a church bell. I had always framed it as love, obligation, sacrifice. I thought it was my duty as a mother to give until it hurt. But now this man was telling me that what Rachel and David were doing had a legal name, a criminal shape. For the first time, I allowed myself to see it not as my failure, but as their crime. Tears welled in my eyes. What can I do? She's my daughter. I don't want her in trouble, but I can't keep living like this. I have nothing left to give. Harris leaned forward, folding his hands. First, we'll cancel this transaction. I'll put an alert on your accounts so no money moves without your direct consent and an additional ID verification. Second, I'll file a report documenting what you've told me. Third, I'll connect you with resources for seniors facing this kind of abuse. But the most important step isn't mine, it's yours. He paused, his eyes locking on mine. Then he asked the question that would change everything. Are you ready to say no? The words hit me like a blow to the chest. Was I ready? For 69 years, my entire identity had been built on saying yes. Yes to Rachel's demands. Yes to every sacrifice. Yes, until there was nothing left of me. If I stopped being that woman, if I said no, who would I be? I thought of Thomas, of his tired eyes, warning me not to give away everything. I thought of the pink bicycle, the sold heirlooms, the endless loans. I thought of Emily learning through her mother that love was just another word for money. And I realized that if I didn't say no, now Emily would grow up believing it was normal to bleed those who loved you dry. My throat tightened, but my voice came out stronger than I expected. Yes, I whispered. Then louder. Yes, I'm ready to say no. Harris smiled gently, almost like a father reassuring a frightened child. He slid a stack of papers toward me. Then let's begin. When Mr. Harris led me back into the lobby, my legs trembled, but my heart carried a strength I hadn't felt in years. The polished floor gleamed beneath the fluorescent lights. The hum of machines still filled the air. But everything felt different now. I wasn't walking back as a victim. I was walking back as someone who had finally decided to fight. Rachel spotted us immediately. Her smile was still plastered on, but I could see the edges cracking. What took so long, Mom? She asked, her voice light and melodic, but her eyes sharp with suspicion. We're going to be late. Just sign the papers so we can leave. For the first time in decades, I didn't avert my gaze. I looked straight into those green eyes, the same eyes I once thought were a reflection of my love, and I said words that tasted like fire on my tongue. I'm not going to sign Rachel. The silence that followed was deafening. David shot up from his chair so abruptly the legs scraped the floor. Rachel blinked rapidly, as if trying to process what she'd just heard. What? What do you mean? She stammered, her voice faltering. Mom, we already talked about this. It's just a temporary transfer. You'll get it all back. I shook my head slowly, my voice steady in a way that surprised even me. No, Rachel. It's not temporary. It's my retirement money. And I'm keeping it. Gasps rippled through the people nearby. A woman in line lowered her insurance brochure. A young man in a suit stopped scrolling his phone. For the first time, strangers were noticing that something wasn't right at this little family table. David leaned forward, lowering his voice, but not his menace. Evelyn, don't be ridiculous. What are you going to do with all that money? You don't have expenses. We can invest it better for the whole family. I let out a bitter laugh, one I hadn't known was trapped in my chest. For the whole family, like the $40,000 I gave you for the house down payment, or the $20,000 I handed over when you lost your job. Tell me, David, how much of that have you ever paid back? His smile cracked his jaw, tightening eyes darkening into the cold predator I had always sensed beneath the charm. Those were gifts, he muttered. I never said that I shot back. You promised. Over and over again, you promised it was temporary. But nothing was ever temporary with you. It was always another emergency, always another lie. Rachel's eyes welled with tears, but I recognized them for what they were: performance. She pressed her trembling hands to her chest. Mom, I can't believe you're doing this to me. After everything we've shared, after all the love we've given you. My voice cut through the room like a blade. Love. You call this love? You call it love when your husband bruises my arm to force my signature. You call it love when you trick me into coming here to steal the last money I have left. That's not love, Rachel. That's manipulation. That's abuse. The bank grew still. Heads turned. People whispered. For once, the performance wasn't mine. It was theirs unraveling in public. Rachel's mask slipped, panic flickering across her face. She tried again, lowering her voice to a desperate whisper. Okay, then don't transfer all of it. Just half. 10,000, that's all we need. Please, Mom. Think of Emily. The mention of Emily stung, but this time it didn't break me. I straightened my shoulders. What emergency, Rachel? David has a job. You have a house. What exactly is this 10,000, for be honest? She faltered, her lips parting, but no words coming out. In that silence, I saw the truth I had refused to see for so long. There was never an emergency. There was just my endless supply of yes. Rachel, I said, my voice rising. You are 35 years old. David is 38. You both have degrees I paid for. You both have jobs. It's time for you to live on your own income. I will not fund your lifestyle anymore. David slammed his fist onto the table, but before he could move closer, the security guards stepped in, placing themselves between us. Mr. Harris's voice was calm but firm. That's enough. Mrs. Carter has made her decision. Continuing to pressure her constitutes harassment. You need to leave. Rachel's tears vanished, replaced by an expression of pure hatred. Her lips curled as she hissed, Fine, Mom, if that's what you want. But don't come crying when you're alone in that empty house with no one to care about you. David added coldly, Don't call us when you're sick. We're not your health insurance. For a brief second, fear clawed at my chest. What if they were right? What if I ended up old, sick, and alone? But then I remembered Thomas's words. Fear is the most powerful tool manipulators have. And I realized I wasn't afraid of being alone anymore. I was afraid of never being free. I stood tall, my voice steady, echoing through the bank lobby. Love cannot be bought with money. The guards escorted Rachel and David out. Their figures shrank as they disappeared through the glass doors, taking with them years of manipulation and guilt. I sank into a chair, trembling. But for the first time in my life, I felt something I hadn't known in decades. Power, freedom, the strength of a single word, no. When the glass doors closed behind Rachel and David, the bank lobby exhaled as if it too had been holding its breath. I sat there trembling, my heart pounding against my ribs, my hands clammy, but inside me, something extraordinary stirred. For the first time in my life, I had said no, and the world hadn't ended. The ceiling hadn't collapsed. The earth hadn't swallowed me whole. The only thing that crumbled was their control. Mr. Harris crouched beside me, his voice low and steady. You did the right thing, Mrs. Carter. They can't touch your accounts now. You're safe. Safe! I let the word roll around in my mind like a foreign language. Could I really be safe from my own daughter? From years of patterns built on guilt and obligation, I wanted to believe it. But safety doesn't erase history. The aftermath came quickly. By that evening, my phone buzzed with calls, Rachel's number flashing again and again until the screen went black from overuse. Voicemails poured in, each one a new tactic. First came the syrupy sweetness. Mom, I'm sorry. I overreacted. Please, let's talk. I love you. Then came the guilt. How could you humiliate me like that in public? Do you know what people will say? Finally, the threats. If you don't give us the money, you'll never see Emily again. I listened to each message with shaking hands, tears pricking at my eyes. For years, those words would have broken me. would have sent me scrambling to fix things, to sacrifice more. But now something inside me had shifted. Harris's question still echoed in my mind. "Are you ready to say no?" And my answer hadn't changed. I didn't pick up the phone. The next day, Rachel escalated. She brought Emily to my doorstep. My sweet granddaughter stood there, clutching a crayon, drawing her big eyes wide with confusion. "Grandma," she said softly, "Mommy says you don't want to help us anymore. Is that true?" Her voice cracked, and my heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. That little girl had no idea she was being used as a pawn in a war she never asked for. Behind her, Rachel folded her arms, smirking. "See, even Emily doesn't understand why you're being so cruel." I knelt down to Emily's level, my throat tight. "Sweetheart, I love you more than anything in this world. That will never change. But love doesn't mean money. Do you understand?" She frowned, tilting her head, trying to make sense of words too heavy for her age. Rachel rolled her eyes and tugged her away. "Come on, Emily. Grandma doesn't care about us anymore." Those words cut deeper than any knife. But instead of collapsing under them, I stood firm. I whispered to myself, "This isn't rejection. This is freedom." The harassment didn't stop. Weeks turned into months of missed calls, angry letters, even mutual acquaintances trying to shame me. "Rachel says you abandoned her," one neighbor told me, shaking her head. I wanted to scream the truth, to shout about the bruises, the manipulation, the endless financial bleeding. But I also knew I didn't owe anyone an explanation. Not anymore. There were nights when loneliness crept in, when I sat in the quiet of my house and wondered if Rachel was right. Would I die alone, sick and forgotten? Because I chose myself over her. Those fears gnawed at me. But each time they did, I remembered the bank. I remembered the look on David's face when I said no. I remembered the sudden rush of air in my lungs, the intoxicating taste of freedom. And I knew I had made the right choice. Slowly, the silence transformed from terrifying to liberating. I began noticing little things I had long forgotten, the way the morning light spilled across my kitchen table, the smell of fresh coffee, the softness of my own laughter when I remembered something Thomas once said. I had space in my mind, again, space not consumed by Rachel's demands or David's threats. And within that space, something beautiful grew. Hope. Hope that Emily would one day see the truth. Hope that I could rebuild a life not defined by giving everything away. Hope that saying no didn't mean losing love forever. It meant creating the possibility of real love, unchained by money. Rachel and David's shadow still loomed, of course. They called less, but when they did, their words dripped with venom. Ungrateful, selfish, heartless. For the first time, I didn't absorb those words as truth. I saw them for what they were, the tantrums of people who had lost their grip on me. And with every ignored call, every unopened letter, I felt my spine grow straighter, my lungs fill fuller, my soul lighter. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was beginning to live. In the months after I finally said no, I discovered that silence could be louder than screams. My phone still rang, letters still arrived, and whispers in the neighborhood still reached my ears, but I no longer felt crushed under their weight. For the first time in decades, I was free to decide what my life would look like. The question was, what would I do with that freedom? The answer came from an unexpected place. My great-niece, Sophia Turner, called me one afternoon. She was only 18, bright and restless, the daughter of my sister, Diana's boy. She asked if she could take me to a meeting at the library. "It's a support group for people who've been manipulated by family," she explained. At first, I resisted. I told her, I wasn't the kind of person who shared my pain with strangers. But she persisted. You don't have to talk. Just listen. So I went. And there, in a circle of metal chairs under the buzzing fluorescent lights of the public library, I found something I didn't know I had been searching for: belonging. One woman spoke about her son, who drained her retirement for gambling debts. Another man confessed that his daughter had taken out credit cards in his name. Story after story spilled out, and with each one I felt less alone. These were not weak people. They were loving people. People like me who had confused sacrifice with duty and love with obligation. For the first time, I understood what happened to me had a name, and I wasn't the only one living through it. When it was my turn, my voice shook as I told them about Rachel, about David, about Emily's little drawings used as weapons against me. But instead of judgment, I saw nods of recognition. Instead of pity, I felt respect. One woman leaned over and whispered, "You're braver than you think." That night, I went home lighter, and I kept going back. Each meeting, I grew stronger. I learned to set boundaries. I learned that love without respect is not love at all. And slowly, I began to build a new version of myself, not the mother who always said yes, but the woman who had learned to say no. With that strength, I started to explore the world again. I booked a trip to Tuscany, something I had dreamed of since I was a girl flipping through travel magazines at the grocery store. Walking through vineyards under the Italian sun, sipping wine at long wooden tables with strangers who became friends, I felt reborn. For the first time in decades, my life was about joy, not survival. When I came home, I took up painting. At first, my hands shook, unused to holding a brush instead of a pen signing checks. But soon, colors poured out of me: sunsets, gardens, even a portrait of Thomas smiling the way he used to. I hung my paintings in my small cottage, and each one reminded me that beauty could still be created even out of brokenness. 2 years passed this way. I built routines filled with peace morning walks, afternoons, painting evenings with my support group. My life was not empty. It was full in ways I had never imagined. Yet one piece of my heart still ached: Emily. Then, one autumn afternoon, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find her standing there, taller now, 11 years old, her eyes wide and uncertain. She held another drawing in her hands. "Grandma," she whispered, "is it true what Mommy says, that you don't love us because you won't give money anymore?" My chest tightened, but I knew this moment mattered more than any check I had ever written. I knelt down, taking her small hands in mine. "Emily," I said softly, "I love you more than anything. But love isn't money. Love is being honest. Love is keeping you safe. Love is standing here with you right now, telling you the truth." Tears welled in her eyes, and she threw her arms around me. For the first time, I felt her hug, not as a weapon, but as a gift. I held her close, breathing in the scent of crayons and autumn leaves in her hair. In that embrace, I felt the possibility of healing, not with Rachel, not with David, but with the next generation. It wasn't full reconciliation. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. But it was enough. Emily had come on her own, searching for real love. And I had given her what Rachel never understood: the kind of love that doesn't need to be bought. 2 years after that day in the bank, I now live in a small cottage by myself. The silence that once terrified me has become my greatest companion. I wake up each morning to the sound of birds outside my window, not the shrill ring of Rachel's demands. I drink my coffee slowly, letting the warmth fill me instead of rushing to solve someone else's crisis. In the evenings, I paint or I write, and in those quiet moments, I finally hear my own voice, the one I silenced for decades. Every time I said yes, I keep a journal, now a book, filled not with expenses or debts, but with truth. I write about the bicycle, the jewelry, the loans, the sacrifices. I write about the bruises David left on my arm, and the way Rachel smiled as if it were love. And then I write about the moment everything changed when I looked into my daughter's eyes and finally said, no. When I close that book, I smile because I know my story isn't one of revenge. It wasn't revenge. It was liberation. I didn't destroy Rachel or David. I didn't need to. They destroyed themselves with greed. What I destroyed was the prison they built around me, the belief that my worth was tied to how much I could give. What I reclaimed was my dignity, my peace, my freedom. And maybe that is what you watching this right now need to hear. Maybe you have said yes too many times to people who saw your kindness as weakness. Maybe you've been drained by those who confuse love with control. Let me tell you this. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to protect what is yours. And you are still worthy of love even when you stop giving everything away. This story is my truth, but it might be your reminder. If it touched something in you, don't let it end here. Share your thoughts in the comments. I read them, and they matter. Save this video because one day you might need to hear these words again. And if you want more stories that shine a light on dark truths and hidden betrayals, subscribe right now. Your next moment of strength could be waiting in the very next story.